like the video.
What you're about to hear is a conversation I had with my dear friend Sierra the night before the 2024 election. We talked for around 2 hours, so you'll probably get this in 2 parts. Enjoy the show.
Derapy, Season 3 of Derapy. 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 It's season.
I didn't want to come in under the impression that that you were like, oh, it'd be so nice to catch up with my old pal Derek, and then I ambush you with like a show, and you're like,
No.
I wasn't ready to perform.
No, I mean, I thought initially, yeah, like when I first got your text, it was like, oh, that's nice. And then I just thought a little bit more about it. And I was like, well, probably just given our last interaction. So
Given our brief history of a non-Wendy's, post-Wendy's friendship, the foundation of it was a podcast show. Well, how's life, first of all?
it's pretty good, actually. Other than, like the looming anxiety of the election. Everything
Okay.
else-
The looming anxiety of the election. I'm like way more excited to talk about that than I probably should be. One thing that I've come to terms with, I've like subconsciously been aware of the fact that I have like some level of privilege as a man. I'm also like obviously aware of the fact that sometimes like I am lacking in some privileges as like a black person. It's like a weird line to toe. You feel me? I got put in check. I got clocked, I think is what the kids are saying. Trying to keep up with this new age language,
Mhm.
not for me. It's not. It feels so awkward. I don't know if you've been keeping up with and this isn't like I feel like this accidentally happens every time I try to talk to somebody on the show where it's like, have you been listening to my podcast lately? But I have to ask for the sake of what I'm about to ask you.
So actually, this is like a no, but I drive a 2007 car, so the speakers are getting just so bad. So like I have it so that like it plays primarily on the left side because the right side is inoperable. Basically, it's just like static. So I tried to like I don't really drive that much anymore. Like I drive to and from court when I need to, which is a long drive. So sometimes I'll bring like my Bluetooth speaker, but I'm like
Oh,
at
man.
home a lot more. Yeah. I mean, it's really bad. So I haven't been listening to like audiobooks or podcasts because I can't hear what they're saying.
Right. Wow.
yeah, so
That's
it's-
bad.
It's pretty sad.
And relatable. There was a time where I remember like back in my Wendy's days when I was driving significantly worse Nissan Altima. It was a 2001 Altima, and the speakers were also like just destroyed. So I was also like listening to a portable speaker while driving a car. What a weird feeling.
Yeah.
And then like people get in your car and they're like, why is there a speaker in here?
Mhm.
And you're like, do we have to? Like, I don't want to get into that. But the reason why I asked you about whether you've been listening to the show or not, it wasn't to test your friendship or whatever.
Sure.
It was I've been making a lot of hip hop music based episodes lately, and in
That's
one of
cool.
them, I think so too. I was talking about a Kendrick Lamar song, and I like briefly ranted about people's feelings towards politics and how I was like, come on, everybody's gonna be fine. You guys are acting like we're all gonna die. It's a comedy show. Like, I'm not being like super serious, but it's also not coming from a place of authenticity, right? But naturally, when you have a show that's
Flex on them.
growing like mine, has a
Yeah,
relatively
yeah.
significant audience, there's gonna be like a few people that like will hear something that for lack of better word triggers something in them, and they
Mhm.
feel the need to be like, it's easy for you to say that this is so inconsequential, your privilege is showing. Boom. And I was like, naturally, like, you want to be defensive, but then I really thought about it and I was like, yeah, it is kind of easy for me to say because, like, there are certain issues that people have like at the top of their list as far as like things that are going to affect them, and those issues don't affect me at all as man. So when you say things like, I have this like anxiety about what's to come. Where does that come from, fellow woman?
Well, yeah, I mean, I mean, you don't think they affect you at all because you're married to,
So if it does affect me, I guess I haven't taken the steps to educate myself on exactly how it would. My
yeah.
personal experience is that I've been with the same woman when Trump was president, like all
Mhm.
4 years, and then like when Biden was president, all those years, and no political decisions have directly affected my relationship throughout the past 7 or 8 years.
Of
So
course.
why would it start now?
Yeah. Well, so I think, I mean, yeah, like my biggest concern right now is definitely like reproductive freedom. I don't even yet know if like children personally, like for me, or something that is like a path I want to go down. But I think it's really important. I mean, just to have access to that healthcare. Like, plenty of people, you hear those stories. Like, there was recently a woman who like got sepsis and then they couldn't actually go through with any sort of like medical abortion procedure. I think she ended
Mhm.
up being okay, but like now she like lost her ability to have children. And so I just think that even though it hasn't yet affected your relationship, like I think that it could, like doctors not wanting to do important medical work out of fear of
Right.
time. I,
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that maybe some people are under the impression that like it doesn't affect you unless you are literally in like immediate need of an abortion, which was
yeah,
frankly like my initial stance on it. I mean, my stance around abortion generally is like it's not necessarily as simple as like no uterus, no opinion, because like I do have an opinion, but I also
sure.
recognize that like it's not really all that important. So like basically, I've been with the same woman since March of 2017, and my position has always been if she were to in fact become pregnant. I love how people always talk about pregnancy as if like they're like not directly involved. I would
Mhm.
definitely like do I'd put it in her. But
Yeah, sure,
if
sure.
if she were pregnant, my position has literally always been like if she asks for my opinion, I'll give it to her. But it feels kind of weird for me to like dictate in any way what exactly the decision she's going to make. Like because I literally
Yeah,
like it's just not my body. It seems like really obvious when you say it out loud.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess I it doesn't like strike home for me because in my situation, in our situation, she's had access to birth control,
sure.
and it's just like when we're ready to have a baby, then I guess she'll just stop doing birth control. And so for
Yeah,
me, it's really easy to like my privilege is that I have like a committed exclusive relationship with somebody that has access to birth control. Therefore, like abortion is not something we really have to worry about all that much.
yeah. Although I would counter and say like that you should still consider the legislation important because like what if, and I don't ever want to speak this into existence, so I feel like a
Mm-hmm.
hypothetical situation is better. So like a married couple, like the woman stops taking birth control and then they find out that there's some sort of like infertility issues or
Mm-hmm.
fertility issues rather, and then they have to maybe do like IVF, and then you have situations where you have those embryos stored and there's like the question about all of that. And so I think that it really panders out. And I mean, even access to contraception, like I feel like it starts to get much larger than just abortion, I think, very quickly.
Absolutely. So, would you say that's like close to the top of your list as far as what's important for you and what's informing your voting decision, or are there like other things?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely at the top because I feel like my like second most important sort of like platform issue would be the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, it's not really something that is being very strongly campaigned on. And even like
Mm-hmm.
as voter base, we're not really asking for it.
Nobody wants to talk about it if we're
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
totally honest. And it's not even because I think there are some people that probably do like on some level think that it's important, but
Mhm.
also like it just takes time to really get informed about these things. And I mean, I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say, and you don't have to counter this because I just know that it's true. You have like a job, right? And I think that like you are working harder at your job than I am. And I don't even feel like it's not that I don't have time to look into these things. It's just like when it comes to like the list of things that I care about, like in my life or things that I just want to be doing, or when it comes to like my personal philosophy, which is just prioritizing having fun, like climate change literally never makes its way on the list of like things that I want to learn about or read about, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get that. I think, yeah, activism and things related to that are very challenging and take a lot of time, and they're not very rewarding often. So I definitely get that. And I'm in a position where I'm like, I don't really know that we need everyday people like us to even strongly consider environmental policy. I just want somebody who's going to make it happen in a way that is actually good for us.
I think it makes sense to like lean politically more towards somebody that is, if not taking it seriously, at least like acting like they're taking it seriously, because that way the people that are voting for them can like then ultimately hold them accountable, which is honestly part of why I am I've already decided who I'm going to vote for. Let me ask you this before we continue, just for the record. My editor can cut this if he wants to.
I've been chilling.
Is there like anything now based on your job role that like I shouldn't ask you about, or you wouldn't feel comfortable talking about, or are you just gonna tell me like as we go?
I don't know that anything would. No, I mean, no. I guess I'm wondering what you're.
Well, you don't have like a public facing job, like people. I don't know, like based on your day-to-day work, do you feel like you have the like you have like a obviously you have a reputation to uphold, like just generally speaking, like as a human being and as a good employee, but you don't think that anything that you say on a podcast could potentially affect your employment status or anything?
No, I don't think so. No, that's an interesting question though. I have thought about that. I recently got Twitter again, like this year, I think, after a very long hiatus. And it does make me kind of uncomfortable sometimes because it's just such a nasty platform. People can be so horrible.
Yeah, people are awful on there. And Elon Musk is not doing anybody any favors with like the weird changes to the block features and it's a very odd time to be on there. But I also literally will never leave the app as long as I live. It's like kind of essential to like my joy, which is ridiculous. It's such an embarrassing thing to say that like I get so much joy out of like being there and just knowing generally what people are talking about. But yeah, I mean, I was gonna ask you, I mean, it's probably like a little, I don't want to say obvious, but I've already said the word, like who you're gonna vote for. Have you already voted?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I have. So Colorado does this really, really cool thing. They send everybody who's registered to vote a ballot. And then you can mail it in, or you can go to like a drop-off box and just put your ballot there well ahead of time, which is incredible. And then they send you this book of all of the like proposed changes in the law. And then they give you like little explanations about like why you might want to vote which way. It's really incredible compared to Tennessee. So yeah, I have already voted, and they even have like a website so you can check to see if your ballot has been received. So mine has been counted already, which is great. But I did vote for Harris. So
sick. Heck yeah. Would you say, and I feel like I know your answer, but I have to ask anyways, do you feel like if you had to pick one side or the other, did you feel like your vote was more pro Kamala or more anti-Trump?
Oh, it was definitely more anti-Trump. Yeah, I don't know that I love the platform of like, hey, these Republicans like us now, so that should be like helpful for you and voting for us. I think that's really weird messaging, because I think a lot of Republicans are also nasty in some of their, not all of them, but I just think some of them can be.
I get that. I find that ultimately I'm going to vote tomorrow. I wish I could say that like I had a specific fun reason. I mean, I've been telling people like, oh, I like the idea of witnessing the atmosphere of voting on actual election day. I've actually just been procrastinating. But I decided that I was gonna vote for Kamala because my wife and I have been talking about having kids lately, and I've been thinking about like, you know, my role as like a human that lives in the United States. And I was just thinking about like, regardless of who wins, I would prefer to like tell my children that I didn't vote for like this person that was kind of like just known as a celebrity and kind of like a jokey orangey guy that
Mm-hmm.
also happened to once upon a time like mock a disabled person, and as
Yeah.
somebody that like when they were born technically speaking was labeled handicap, I was just like that seems kind of unforgivable for somebody that's like that
Yeah.
old to be doing. And I just generally like I think I'm a nice person, right? Like
Mhm.
I lean kindness and courtesy and compassion, and Kamala seems nicer. And some people say that when it comes to politicians, you shouldn't be looking for somebody that's like sweet or worry about like their empathy or whatever. You should be more focused on like whether they can actually do the job or not, which in some cases, in most cases, I agree. The most important thing is doing a good job. But I also think that the president is kind of like representative of your country. And there
Mhm.
was a time where a younger me would have been like, we kind of deserve Trump. Like
Mhm.
he's terrible, but he's funny, and our society is kind of like a wreck, and it kind of makes sense. And I don't really care either way because I'm in college, right? But as like a growing person that's like considering starting a family, it's like, do I want to be responsible for contributing to potentially having the first woman as a president, or do
Mhm.
I want to be responsible for like putting like a fucking jerk in there? You know, he's just
Mhm.
like not nice. And even if
Yeah.
Kamala's like faking it, even if she's like woefully unprepared, I have this like weird kind of funny argument for her being there. Joe Biden, for all intents and purposes, is like kind of out of it, right? Like we all know that. That's the reason that he's not running right now,
Mhm.
regardless of whether he wants to or not. Like it's not that he's too old to do the job, like age wise. It's just like look at him, like listen
Mhm.
to him. He can't do it, right? But the fact that the country is still standing and the government is still functioning, I think is actually like the sign of like a pretty good institution. And I think like the less we kind of fuck with that, the better.
Mhm.
Whereas if we get Trump in there, everybody that currently works in that administration that has been keeping us alive, despite the fact that Joe Biden kind of isn't, all those people have to leave, and then all of Trump's people come in, and half the time he doesn't even keep these people. He fires half of them halfway through anyways, and it's just like a lot of unpredictability. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of just unknowns. And I would just rather like if Kamala's like Joe Biden 2.0 or whatever, I think I would prefer that to just complete like unknowns. Also, I just want to tell my kids I did like a good thing. I tried to vote for who I thought was a better person, and I think there's just no harm in that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like we run into this sometimes, especially in, I mean, the legal field. Like you have some people who are not very kind. Like you run into like DAs or even like other criminal defense attorneys who like they really view the other side as being their opponent in
Mm-hmm.
a way that I think can really degrade their representation of their client. Because you get so much from people when you're genuine and nice to them.
Yeah.
Like just a little bit of kindness goes a long way. So I think like it could be really beneficial to have a president who is kind and compassionate. And I feel like we need to see that. Like we almost need that modeled as a
Right.
people because we've lost it.
I used to read all these reports about how like, Kamala's team didn't believe in her. Every time they give her a job, she's not great at it. And I'm like, just like when Trump got in there, he didn't know anything about politics and somehow the country didn't completely fall.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kamala's been in there for 4 years now. So
Mm-hmm.
like she had to have learned some stuff by accident. Like I think it's gonna be like a smoother transition. And I also like the idea of I don't know how you feel about this. I'm interested to hear what you think. I used to scoff at people that would say like if you don't vote then you don't have the right to complain. And at first I was like, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm 4 years old. But like when you
Yeah.
when you grow up, you're like, it kind of makes sense because it's okay to be upset about things because the people that aren't like who you wanted are there. But it's kind of ridiculous, like if you didn't try at all, like I'm not
Yeah.
really trying to hear it. You feel me?
Yeah. No, my mom and stepdad don't vote. And they had that ideology all while I was growing up. And for the most part, I mean, they kind of live by it. Like they don't really complain all that much because they're not doing anything to change it. I think what really drives me crazy are the people who are like, it's all rigged. Because I think there's a lot of evidence that is not happening. And I think like voter suppression wouldn't be happening if it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So that drives me kind of bonkers.
Yeah, I was definitely, well, also just like as a person that is like trying to yap for a living, it's like crazy for me to come out here and like talk about things with such confidence and with such like bravado when like I didn't do anything. It's crazy to come out here and be like, dude, this sucks. This is crazy. Look at this. This is ridiculous. And everybody's like, well, what did you do? And I'm like, nothing. But like, come on, right? That would be like a terrible look for me. But yeah, I've been looking through your Twitter, and I want to ask you about some of the stuff you posted. Are you cool with that? I'm sure you're like super comfortable with that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Hey, quick break in the action. Editor Derek here. Wow, this has been a real easy one for me. Like, I haven't had to do much of anything at all. What a nice and pleasant conversation. Quick break in the action here, just to remind you, dude, it's been 20 minutes. If you've been sitting in the exact same position, go ahead and stretch out, like stretch the arms, stretch the back. If you're hunched over, I know some of you are hunched over. Stop that right now. Your back will thank you. Text back anybody that has texted you and you thought you should put it off to like lock into this podcast with this quick break, shoot them that text back or just like the message. I love doing that. But also,
like the video.
But yeah, enjoy more of this conversation between Derek and Sierra. I hope you enjoy it.
First of all, this is like something that I got while like I was waiting for you to get on. Have you been like getting spammed with political text like in the past couple of days, or is that just me?
I've gotten some, but not as many as, no, it hasn't really been an issue for me.
They've been ramping up, and like, it's crazy. I never thought like I would judge myself based off of the text that I'm getting. I'm kind of like, where have I been looking? What have I been watching in order for me to get this text from? And this is embarrassing. Like, I'm going to fully out myself. Like, I got this text that says, it's MTG. Immediately, I'm like, I got hacked. Because what the fuck? Republicans in Northwest Georgia, where I am not, are not, not in all caps, are not turning out like we need to win. While we stay home, Democrats flood the polls. This election is too important to sit out. Donald Trump took a bullet for us. I don't know why I'm laughing at that. We must show up and vote. I am begging you. It's kind of pathetic. Get out and vote. Election day is tomorrow. Flood the polls. And first of all, this picture that I have, it's a picture of her and Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson's laughing, and then Trump's on the right. Here, I'm gonna try and just like show this to you through the camera. It's like not a super like serious image. That's like this guy took a bullet for us. The least we can do is get out and vote in Northwest Georgia. It also kind of screams like we think we're gonna lose. This message is like mad desperate.
Yeah, I'm begging is kind of crazy. That's kind of wild.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because Georgia's one of those like southern states where you kind of assume that it's going to be red. Like Tennessee is like always going to be red. And I'd had to talk myself out of the whole like my vote doesn't even matter. Electoral college. But like, I should still try. But yeah, the first the first tweet I actually have was just like you reposting a Taylor Swift endorsement. which I found interesting for like a number of reasons. I mean, one, it's just like, if anybody didn't know that you were like big Swiftie, it's like, there it is. I could put out my own statement, or I could be like,
a word from Tay Tay.
T Swizzle over here says that she's voting for Harrison Walls. So when you repost something like that, do you have a thought process, or is it more like the person I like agrees with me? How about that?
No, I think it was less about agreeing and it was more like vindication, because I'm no matter what social media platform I find myself on, I end up, the algorithm plucks me right into Taylor Swift land. So I'm pretty deep in some of the theories and some of the fan base. So and I try not to engage too much because I feel like it gets kind of crazy and I don't want to participate in all of it, but some of it is fun and whatever. So I think it was nicer because it was really pleasant to see an artist that I like and that I respect and that I think is doing cool things often do something that kind of solidifies that respect. Like I struggle a lot with like, do I think celebrities really need to be like giving their opinions on politics or fucking world conflict? Like, I
Right.
don't know that, but then I'm like, at some point, we should all kind of be saying something, and
Yeah,
it was nice.
absolutely. I feel similarly, which is like 8 to 14% of the reason why we're talking now, because I haven't made like a public statement, and I normally wouldn't even consider it, but I have a YouTube channel with 20,000 subscribers,
Wow, okay.
which is like crazy. It's actually 21 now, and I wouldn't normally think that like, oh, my podcast, I need to go on there and tell people what I'm doing and who I'm voting for or whatever. I live in near Nashville,
Yeah.
near the Bridgestone Arena, which holds like 17, 18,000 people, 20,000, like that.
Yeah.
And I've been in there before, and I know how many people that is. And the fact that like me saying something could reach like that amount of people, like, is, it'd be weird to like not do something with that if I thought it was like objectively positive, like just telling people to vote.
Yeah.
And I think that I understand why people do it, why they just say go out and vote and then they don't tell you who they're voting for. I understand why they're doing it, and I also think it's soft.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like there was this football player, I forgot who it was. My editor will tell me in post. He went out and he
It was the 49ers, Bosa.
he jumped into this post-game interview. Okay, I just remembered. Brock Purdy, San Francisco 49ers. He's having a post-game interview. One of his teammates runs up and he like shows off his MAGA hat, and then he like runs off, which is, whatever. Like on its own, not that big of a deal, right? I think it's kind of lame. Like, just make your own post. You don't have to sabotage somebody else's interview to make your like political statement, but whatever, right? So then after the game, like a good journalist, a reporter, comes up to the guy with the hat that jumped into his quarterback's interview, who actually had the good game, and they're like, "Hey, it seemed like you were out there trying to make a statement. You want to like elaborate on it?" And he's like, "No," and I'm like, "You're kind of a hoe for that. Like, what do you mean? Like, speak up, like."
Yeah.
And I think it's like either like all the way do it or like,
can you shut the fuck up?
But yeah, I think that I kind of have like a mixed opinion on celebrities like making loud endorsements too. Like, I respect it, but also like if you're gonna do it, like, could you please make it like serious?
Yeah.
Like Cardi B's out there doing her best when the teleprompter's working at rallies, and it's not always gonna be like the most put together, but like you can tell like the passion is there. Like, I appreciate the effort, because it would be easy for her to just like be neutral. Like nobody was like, truthfully, nobody asked.
Yeah.
And I think that actually makes it kind of cooler that she was like, I want to do it anyways,
Yeah. No, absolutely. That is pretty rad.
I don't think that there are really a lot of people out there that like would not have voted at all. And then they're like, well, I mean, Meg Thee Stallion said that real hotties vote. So, but I do think that there's like not nobody. So I guess, it certainly matters at least a little bit. And if it matters at least a little bit, then, it's definitely worth doing, especially if they're getting paid really well for it, which they totally are.
Who?
Celebrities. Do you think that celebrities get paid to show up at rallies and make endorsements, or no? What do you think?
I mean, I honestly, I guess it's hard to say with like the physical appearances.
50 Cent went on an interview and he said he got offered like $3 million, I think, to perform this song called Many Men that's about like being shot multiple times and surviving, which, to be fair, okay, Trump, bad guy, sometimes, my opinion, pretty funny dude. I think that like awful people can be funny. Like, these things, don't have to be mutually exclusive. The idea of him being shot and then asking 50 Cent to perform a song about being shot but like surviving because you're a gangster, like, I think that's pretty tough. Joe Biden is like about to retire in like a couple minutes, and he's like, you know what, if you vote for Trump, you're garbage. And Trump is like, I'm gonna dress up like as a garbage man. Like that shit's funny. Like I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
He
No,
he shouldn't be president, but like some of this stuff is pretty cool.
yeah.
Like, but yeah. Did you hear about the Tony Hinchcliffe thing, Puerto Rico stuff?
Like the like joke about Puerto Rico being like an island of garbage or whatever.
Yeah, I think that my issue with it wasn't I don't know how you feel about this. Maybe like cuz I like to believe that like I'm a empathetic, compassionate person generally, but I also have like this principle where like I don't usually make it my mission to be offended on behalf of others. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to be like he was dissing on Puerto Ricans, so like fuck that guy and his jokes. I
Yeah.
just think that like it wasn't a good joke. So
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty solid because I'm a big comedy fan. I love stand up more than stand up, but stand up especially. I'm a really big fan. And yeah, I feel like people get a lot of hate sometimes for like making
jokes.
nasty jokes at the expense of others.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is like those jokes just aren't they're just not funny.
Yeah.
They're just so bad at their job.
Like in the just something have you ever I mean I'm sure you have because like you're a smart person that uses like a bad app. You probably see stuff on Twitter and you're like, wow, this person makes a great point. Wow, that person is stupid. Wow, I can't believe they did that. And then at some point you're like, like nobody even actually cares about this. Like this isn't really real, right? So
Yeah.
the Tony Hinchcliffe thing happens and he makes the joke about Puerto Ricans and Republicans that are on Twitter are like, well, George Lopez made this joke at like a Democrat event about like Mexicans. Did you see that?
No.
So the Republicans' argument was, you guys are mad about this joke, but look over here. What about the, which is always like the sign of a great argument. It's like, well, you know, I mean, that guy was speeding. You know, it's just
Yeah.
it's just fucking nonsense. But the thing is, like, George Lopez's joke was like, oh, Trump something building a wall. He better get it done in one night because, you know, all the Latinos I know, they're not letting those materials lay out there. They're gonna take that shit, right? Now, like the delivery of the joke was fine. Like I understand the joke, and some would say like it's more acceptable because he's joking on his own people. But wasn't that funny to me either. And I think that comedians should like literally only be judged on whether it's funny or not. Because at the end of the day, like your job is to be funny. And like that's literally it. Right. But I think that being like shitty at times can affect your actual job, which is like kind of my argument against Donald Trump, because some people are like, just because he's mean doesn't mean that's going to make him a bad president. And I'd be like, what do you mean? I think that like it's kind of important to be like a good person.
Yeah.
Like a little bit. And some would argue, they're like, well, Kamala did this. And I'm like, well, at least, you know, first of all, that's like another like a look over here thing. And I don't think anybody that's like a serious person wants to get in an argument of like who's done worse things like on a raw level, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. Like it's not even really an argument, you know?
Yeah.
I got nothing for the girl. Like a lot of people talk about like personal, like marital issues. And I'm just like, I don't care. Which
that starts to be beyond, I think, the scope of what it means to be the president. I think for me, like the biggest red flag is definitely like she was a prosecutor for a very long time, and I wonder about just like engaging in a broken system in a misguided way. But I think also I'm in criminal defense, so I feel like I definitely have a biases there.
For sure. I also think that like it's important to be under the assumption that like in any given scenario, Kamala Harris knows how to be like a professional. And like I cannot lend that same courtesy to Donald Trump, because when he's supposed to be the most professional, like we can see him, like we see him
Yeah.
being crazy like on live TV and at his rallies like all the time. And an
Yeah.
easy criticism of Kamala Harris would be like, well, sometimes she's nervous and she sounds like she doesn't know what she's doing. But there's always a point when you're watching a Kamala Harris like yap session. I don't know what to call what she does whenever she's
Yeah.
talking in places. She always gets it together and remembers where she's supposed to be and like falls back on her prepared it's all about aspirations and
Yeah.
inspiration and
Mhm.
dreams. And it sounds silly because like it kind of is, but it's also like not bad, you know.
Yeah.
I would rather somebody like forget what they're supposed to be doing, stumble over themselves, and then fall back on, I'm just here for the American people, dude. Like, I'm just trying to do what's best for our dreams and aspirations and our hopes and our prosperity. That's not like a terrible fallback plan. Trump, when he gets like overwhelmed, he's like, dude, these illegal aliens are gonna fucking blow up the country. Every time he doesn't know what to say, he's like, but
These bad immigrants, they're gonna eat your baby.
and it's crazy because I kind of identify as like an unfortunately like kind of like really annoying centrist, but I also like my views can kind of change like the wind. It's almost like the most important day of the NFL week is Sunday, and then on Monday everybody has all these like big opinions about like how, oh, this team lost, their season's over, this team won, they're going to the playoffs, they're going to win the Super Bowl, right? That's kind of how I feel about politics. And unfortunately, it's like every time Trump has the opportunity to win somebody like me back over, he's fucking it up like all the time. Like every time there's a debate or an interview, you're like, for a couple minutes he seems like a normal person, and then like all of a sudden he just like reverts back into like,
They're eating the dogs.
Yeah.
and Kamala Harris is like her foundation, like her censor, her natural state is like a professional woman that's like worked in law and politics.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. She's a lot more grounded, I think, and reasonable and rooted in reality, which is nice in contrast. It was kind of wild actually when we were watching the VP debate. My roommate and I were talking about how kind of crazy it was to like even be engaging in any sort of like political realm where Donald Trump was like involved, but like he wasn't there in that moment, and it felt so different to have two who can string together a coherent thought actually debate one another.
I am just like unironically like chill on the JD Vance thing. Like I just think like based on what so I know this isn't like the best possible judge of somebody's character. I watched Donald Trump for like 45 minutes on a Joe Rogan podcast, and I was like, nah, he still sounds pretty unhinged, right? Like there's like 15-20 minutes where it's Donald Trump and Joe Rogan talking, and you're like, these are just, I feel like I'm just listening in on like two dudes talking. And then like once he gets into the actual policy, you're like, nah, he's still wilding, right?
Yeah.
And I listened to JD Vance talk for like a while, and I'm like, he just seems like a normal dude, if I'm being all the way real with you. But I also don't know his personal values all that much, his day-to-day life, because if we're being real, like who the fuck knew who JD Vance was until he got picked for VP?
Yeah.
Right. What do you think about like his demeanor? Because you watched the VP debate. I did not.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I mean, yeah, watching that, it was definitely like when I was in law school, I competed in this thing called moot court, and it's basically like you get this problem and you have to write a paper, and I was working with the team, and then you go in front of these fake judges, sometimes like real judges, but in this like acting role basically, and you're just like going through this like fake appeals process. And we had a remark made to us, me and my team, about how some of the questions that we were being asked, we were like kind of dancing around answers. And I feel like it's a very easy thing to pick up on in law school. You get very good at like dodging. And that's what it felt like watching JD Vance. Like you can give good answers, but they don't really mean anything. And so I think he's very good at speaking, but I think like the content of what he's saying is still really problematic to me, especially I think coming from like my perspective being like a woman.
What was like one thing that he may have said that like stuck with you? Like, oh, he's like an icky motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, so he talked about, I mean, he made a comment. Well, he talked at one point about child rearing and like having people come in to help take care of children. And there was just this like big assumption about the care that could be provided for children. And I just thought that that was pretty gross. I wish that I could remember the exact remark. It was something about like grandparents or something in regards to like making childcare more accessible, which is a huge burden and it's so expensive. I had no idea, but I mean, people spend like college tuition kind of money on like daycare.
I've heard. I was talking to somebody and they said that they pay like between $300 and $400 a week
Yes.
for
Yeah.
daycare, and I was like, well, damn, maybe I guess I'm not having a child. I
Yeah.
mean, like I work from home now, so like ideally you would think
Yeah.
I would be able to like help with that, or I say help with that like it's not literally like fully my responsibility,
Yeah.
but like ideally I would be able to like just take care of the kid because I'm already here.
Yeah.
But I assume that people aren't paying this amount of money for like mediocre care. I imagine that it's like a pretty hands-on nonstop deal. Like as long as they are awake, you're kind of working, especially if they're like a really small child. Like they need
Yeah.
constant attention. You can't leave them alone for like any period of time because like once they get to that like age of like between 3 and like 6, or rather like 2 and 5 really before preschool, they're just finding like new and creative ways to like accidentally kill themselves, and you kind of have
Yeah.
to like monitor that all the time. And I think kind of like the idea that you're always going to have like this community of people. Like I understand the value of having like good community, like church and family and stuff, but it's also like not other people's responsibility to like raise your child for you, really. And yeah, I could understand why like the assumption that we shouldn't give people access to this because trust me, these people around you are going to like raise your child. It's weird.
Yeah. And he also had this moment in the VP debate where he said something in regard to like pregnancy or like being a mother. It was very focused on like this is like what women do, and I feel like that's just kind of his shtick is very like women should be having children, and I just think that's gross. I just like think that's a really gross thing to think. Just
Yeah.
to be honest. Like we're not like, I don't know, baby
like
factory.
yeah, baby factory. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like as somebody that I don't like take a bunch of pride in like kicking it with the red team. My mission generally is to just like be as cool with as many people as possible.
Sure.
Also, especially because I'm now like putting out a product that is like monetizable at this point. I think Michael Jordan once famously said that like Republicans buy my shoes too. So like I'm not trying to be like fuck all of these people.
No, that's good.
Because most of them are like I have looked multiple people in the face, in the eyes, in their soul, and like explain to them like, hey, you don't think that somebody that was assaulted should have to like carry that baby, and they're like, nah, dude. And I'm like, whoa,
maybe you're not Satan.
The internet told me that you guys are super cool with rape babies. That they're just not. Like most of these people are like, a lot of people want the same thing, actually, believe it or not. But unfortunately, like the people that are making the decisions are like making the worst ones, it turns out, because I think most people, like with exceptions, are okay with the idea of depending on the circumstance, like having access to making certain choices about your body. But I think like just broadly from like a more religious perspective or like a big picture party line perspective, they're more just like, you're killing a baby. And I just think that's like a lazy way to think.
Yeah, and I also read something recently that like two of the other like really big factors, I think actually this was just in Colorado specifically, but it was talking about like immigration and economics, which I definitely understand. Like I feel like some people are even still like begrudgingly voting for Trump because they think that he's going to be able to make some headway. And I think there's this really like lost idea of like, well, he like was a billionaire or like whatever. So he obviously knows how to like handle money for the country.
Yeah, right.
It's good for us, but it's like, well, he's like kind of the problem, actually.
Well, every time somebody talks about like how good he is at making money, I just think about the fact that like he was dropping like NFTs like just a couple
Hmm.
years ago. And I think like this year he's like selling like fucking like gold Trump sneakers or something. And I'm like, is this guy really like
Yeah.
a genius businessman? Or does he just like find a group of people that he can take advantage of?
Yeah.
Especially now. Oh my God. I just saw like the funniest comment. Somebody left it and they were just like, I don't even think that Trump really wants to run for real. I think he just likes speaking to large audiences uninterrupted. And that shit really tickled me because I was like, that sounds like part of the reason that like I would want to run for president because
Yeah.
I just want like a large group of people that really like me and want to and like hearing me talk. And low key, like I think that might be one of Trump's favorite things about being president or even like a candidate. Like
Yeah.
I have a really hard time believing that like Trump really believed like he really like just cares like on a deep level. Like he's just such an altruistic, like naturally compassionate person that he's like, I truly want what's best for everyone in America. Like it doesn't even feel right coming out of my mouth, you know?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like as you were saying that, did you ever watch Parks and Rec?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So the guy who like runs against Leslie Knope in the city council
Hmm.
kind of gives, yeah, like Trump vibes because he was really just there to hang out. It felt.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that was me running for junior class president.
Wow,
I,
did you
I
win?
Did he?
yeah.
Of course.
What's funny is I said that like I was like, duh. What do you mean? Well, did I win? No. Well, what's funny is I ran for senior class president because I was like, I did it once, I'll do it again, 4 more years, and I lost to this kid, Chris Cunningham. I'll say his name. He's not gonna hear this. I don't give a fuck. And he beat me because like he. I was about to like give a reason, like I knew. I don't know. He said he would put like chocolate milk in the water fountains. Like that's not even a real. Like nobody should have taken that
Yeah.
seriously. Um, but like also when I look back as junior class president, what did I do? Not a fucking thing. Like I didn't do anything. Like it was just like a fun title. And like I think I truly believe like in my heart, like that's how Trump views the presidency.
Yeah.
And he views the presidency the same way I used to view like half the things I did in high school. Like I just want you guys to look at me and think I'm cool. And
Yeah.
I feel like that like Trump gives me that he really gives me that vibe. Like, look at me. I'm winning. Isn't this cool? I won.
Yeah, I mean, he does do a lot of like talking to like other political figures, and I think he likes having access to confidential information. Like I don't want to undersell what I'm sure he's capable of um in terms of like foreign policy specifically.
Yeah, I
Just
don't think
don't
it's
want it to be confused.
impossible that he can do some good things. I just think
Yeah.
that just because he is like kind of obligated to try and do a good job doesn't mean that like he should be there, and it doesn't mean that like I
Oh
believe
no.
he's doing it out of the goodness of his heart. You
Yeah,
know,
no, I actually wonder more about like the bad things that he might do.
I put out like what I thought was a harmless poll earlier. I make community posts because like I like engaging with the people and I like seeing them engage with each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, the big day approaches, make your predictions. I make a poll. One option says the big orange, the other option says Mamala. I thought it was funny. Whatever, it doesn't matter. And I specifically say in parentheses, please no arguing in the comments. There's 123 comments, and I don't think they're just like people,
Wow.
just like, wow, I didn't think this person would be so high in the poll. Like they're pretty like,
Yeah.
oh, if Trump wins, we die. Who is Kamala? I still don't know how to spell her name. I'm I'm a gay person. This will be the end of my life.
Yeah.
Just like really, really like just like the deepest, most like intense like statements and like interactions happening. And it's like a poll. Like it's not like tell me what you think.
Yeah.
I didn't even ask. But that's like kind of just that's just like kind of the state of things. But no, I'm not worried about like pissing off people that love Trump because my thing is, and like I meant to preface our entire political discussion with this, but I always like prep for these like interactions that I have with people over
Sure.
Zoom, and then I completely forget that like we're like friends and we're like not going to follow a script, which I think is like a good thing.
Yeah.
But what I meant to preface this conversation by, I meant to preface it by saying, personally, it doesn't bother me who other people vote for, because
Yeah.
I think that people are voting for whoever they think is going to like give them the best shot at like having a good life. And like, who the fuck am I to be like, I know what's better for you than you, you know? That doesn't feel like I don't feel like that's my place. I will tell people who I'm voting for and why, and that they should vote. And if they aren't voting, they should shut up. But I'm not gonna say like, if you vote for Trump, you are this, because that just feels, I'm kind of a big deal in my own life, but like, I don't think I should be that big of a deal in like your life. I don't want anybody to be like, well, I was gonna vote this way, but that guy that runs the Derapy podcast said, like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't have that amount, like, kind of power. I like the idea of having influence, but not like that. And I also just think that, you know, if somebody has like personally offended you or done something that you find personally unforgivable, who am I to be like, it's not that bad? Vote for my person anyways, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, there's so much like misguided, I mean, disinformation is so serious. And I feel like there's this like classist and very like elitist mentality that can go into it. And I saw that a lot actually, like growing up in the South and then having family who wasn't in the South, and they really trash talked Tennessee. And even now that I've left, they're like, oh, I bet it's so nice that like you're not there anymore. And it's like, it's really complicated actually. So I don't know. Yeah.
I
Like,
find the some of the political discourse that surrounds like places that I live, like Tennessee, like I never thought that I took pride in the state that I'm in.
Yeah.
But like seeing people like shit on it because it's a red state, I'm like, what the fuck did I do? I just happen to live here. Like I've never I've only voted once, and I voted blue like all the way down. And then like Tennessee passes a law or something bad happens here, and everybody's like, that's what those motherfuckers get. And I'm like, what do you mean? I voted for your person. Like it's just kind of unfortunate that it's kind of gotten to that place. And I don't know how to get out of that. I don't know if we ever will. And I feel like that's a bigger problem than like a lot of the policy stuff. Like I think like the genuine spite that people have for people that vote for the other team, I think is like worse than what's actually going to happen to their personal life if their person doesn't get elected. Like I think it's like it's ruining relationships, it's ruining friendships, it's like rotting brains. But you know,
yeah, and it's so much more complicated than that, because I do think like for some people, like I, for instance, like I would never have a partner who voted for Trump or anybody like him, because it tells me like our values aren't the same.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, like my grandpa, like that's more complicated. Like there's so much, I don't like nuance and thought, and it's not as black and white, I think.
Yeah. I've seen people that will like proudly say publicly, like, yeah, I just can't talk to my family anymore because like they voted for Trump. And I'm like, I just don't know if that's like the best choice for you.
Yeah.
It's like these people like love you and they've taken care of you your whole life, and like they would be there for you no matter what. And you're like, you voted differently for me. You're not actually my mom. And like, I'm like, dude, that's not normal.
Yeah. But then, I mean, I don't know, you have people who like are trans and their families like actively voting with somebody who is doing things to like dismantle their rights, and like
that makes
that's
sense.
gotta hurt to like have your own mom, like you're telling them like, hey, this vote is gonna hurt me as a person and like my quality of life, and they're like, sucks
to suck. Yeah. Okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of nuance there.
Yeah.
I think that generally speaking, not great to abandon your family or or feel like they've abandoned you. Yeah. Also, generally speaking, not great to like just openly be like, I don't give a fuck how you feel. I'm going to vote for this person that's going to make your life worse. I think like both of those things are true. I think that most people like aren't willing to have the conversation that you and I are even having, because you know, that just like, it just requires too much brain power. It's just like a lot easier to be like, you know, well, No, I think I'd rather just be a hater today. Because sometimes like being a hater is fun. I'm not gonna lie. Some would say like the entire success of my podcast is built off of like hating on somebody, and that's unfortunate. Are you? Side note: would you happen to be like familiar with why when you and I were making shows together, 50 people were listening to them, and now they're like 20,000? Do you have any idea how that happened?
I mean, you've been going on it for a long time. Like, I feel like inevitably, I mean, I don't know. I keep going back to this thing that I heard, which is, like the thing that you practice at is what you get good at or something like that.
Yeah.
Wherever I read it was like more poetic and profound. But
Right.
I think like just that simple thing of like you've put in a lot of time and effort into this. So I'm not surprised to hear that it's growing. I think it was a very I mean it just makes sense to me.
Well, shucks. I mean, that's incredibly kind, and it's a great thing to hear from your friend. I mean, yeah. I mean, of course, it was just a matter of time that my podcast would get like a decent amount of exposure because I put so much work into it, and I think it's a great product. But actually, truthfully, I started like I made a couple of podcast episodes about the Kendrick Lamar and Drake conflict,
Interesting.
and it like hit the YouTube algorithm like in a way where a lot of people that felt similarly or appreciated my unique perspective or admired my humor and editing skill were like, oh, I like this and I want to keep hearing it. And YouTube algorithm obviously works drastically different from Spotify and Apple Podcast algorithm, which is essentially non-existent. Like you can put out the best quality podcast ever and it can get 5-star ratings and all of your friends can tell all of their friends about it, and it doesn't get served to people that aren't looking for it.
Yeah.
But YouTube is different that way. And my perspective was that like I used to be a Drake fan, and throughout the Kendrick and Drake beef, I discovered things about Drake that I would have never known otherwise. And now I think it's kind of weird. I think he's weird, and I feel weird listening to his music. And a lot of people resonate with that. If you're already a Kendrick Lamar fan, you're like, this guy gets it. He's on the right team.
Yeah.
If you are already a Drake hater, you're like, oh, this guy hates Drake. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
If you love Drake, you're like, who does this guy think he is? Why is he hating on my goat or whatever the fuck, right? So there's a little something for everybody, but also the show is good, and I started a series and I completed it, and but yeah, I also think that the reason why it was so successful, which I haven't thought about a lot until we started talking about it, is because it's low-key built off of like this black and white love and hate, blue versus red thing. No matter how many times I tell people that I don't actually hate Drake, I just think that there were some weird things that were exposed about him, people were still like, this is a channel built off of Drake hate and we love that shit. Keep dumping on that loser and I'll be here forever. Take my money. I will watch everything you do. And part of me is like, I don't know how I feel about this, but another part of me is like, it's not like I'm not having fun. But I just think that like that's prevalent everywhere. It's like the classic, like, oh, you like waffles, so you fucking hate pancakes. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, we do. It reminds me of I no longer participate in TikTok. But
that makes me so happy. I just got off of it too. It's like a bad drug.
Yes, no, it's pretty crazy. But I loved it. I loved it tremendously. I thought it was so much fun. But yeah, I mean, it got pretty pretty bad. So anyways, but there are like those channels where like the people like their whole platform is like cancel culture basically, and they like are really aggressive, and they'll post these like videos and be like, we need to find this person, or like, I don't know, this person's been nurse at like this hospital for like something that happened at like a McDonald's drive-through, like stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, and people eat it up, like they love it. I'm not a fan. I don't really like it. It makes me sad to see like one mistake ruin somebody's life. But I feel like in the context of Drake, he is a weirdo, and it was really nice to see other people talking about it. I feel like once the like Millie Bobby Brown stuff happened, that really was weird to me.
I was going to ask you, since you're like I was gonna say vaguely familiar with Drake, as if that doesn't apply to like most humans on the planet.
Yeah.
Was that it for you that like kind of made you realize that like Drake's a little bit of a weirdo?
Yeah, because that's weird behavior. And I feel like I was like not that much older. Like I was in college when Stranger Things first came out. And so it was very weird to me to think of like a grown man interacting like that with like a child.
We've reached the Drake hating portion of the show, so this feels like a good time to stop. There will be a part 2 that is coming out soon. Thank you for your patience while we took our little break, and thank you to dear friend of the show, Sierra, for coming on and sharing her perspective. Remember to like the video, comment your favorite bits, subscribe for more yapping, and consider becoming a member for $1 to get access to the Derapy Discord, or join our $5 certified therapist tier to get a shout out like this.
Shout out to Greenberg305, the absolute fucking worst. Genevieve Evermore, Sarah Anonymous, Nora the Explorer, Voxel Alex, Red, Juice, Blue Clip SA, Logan Stratus Awesome, Amy, Simply Vibin, Luis Sanchez, Air Waters, Matt Mahoric, Arkeo, Jack Santoro, Light Brown Recluse, Harvey Livius, Blackjack Gaming, Venomous, A Dizzle, Whiskey _ Zeus Cuts by Reggie, Stout Shaco, Nate Rubin, Rich Mixed, Agony, Emma McCoy, Messina, DC, Framerate, On the Hunt Productions, Jordan, Dre Benoit, and Johnny Car Wash.
Love you, mean it.
Enjoy the outro.
Crack in my windshield, I'm pissed off. If you a hater, get lost. Get lost. Yeah, it's my show and I'm in charge. Don't eat lemon pepper wings, but I'm the big boss. Please cut me slack, man, need a discount. About to jump off the roof, that's a dismount. I'm just playing.
I'm okay.
Okay, but like, are you though?
Sorry for the pause, that's awkward. Start a podcast, cause I knew I was a talker. Yeah, my girl love me, but she's sick of my voice. And you know I'm pro-choice, so she do what she want. Why they hate when I get political? I'm a deep thinker, that's critical. Way too serious for a dude not getting paid. Man, I really need a shave. You know what sucks? Most of season 2 of Dave. Taking shots, but I skip out on the bar. Every single show, I swear I wanna raise the bar. Hope you listen close so you never miss the bar. Say the same thing, but I'm still going.